Merhaba and welcome to NBP Hot Seat, the interview series where we sit down with government officials and industry leaders shaping the future of nuclear energy. My name is Zaf Coelho, and today I'm truly delighted to be joined by Dr. Ömer Faruk Koç, an energy expert at the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources of the Republic of Türkiye, where he coordinates nuclear localization activities within the Department of Nuclear Infrastructure Development. Dr. Koç, we actually had the pleasure of hosting you at the Asia Nuclear Business Platform in Jakarta last year, where your presentation on the Turkish localization experience was one of the highlights of the conference. We have been wanting to get you on NBP Hot Seat ever since, so welcome and thank you for making the time, Dr. Koç.
Hello, Zaf. Thank you very much for inviting me to NBP Hot Seat. I'm very glad to be addressing your audience, and I really enjoyed my time in Jakarta addressing all those experts, and you are doing a great job by bringing all the professionals in the nuclear industry and giving us this platform for discussing and reaching the relevant stakeholders. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Dr. Koç. Now, this is generally no better moment for this conversation that we are about to have, as Türkiye moves into the historic commissioning of Akkuyu Unit 1, which is the country's first nuclear reactor, and with a national ambition of 20 gigawatts of nuclear capacity by 2050. The story of how Türkiye has built its nuclear industrial base from scratch is one that every emerging nuclear nation needs to hear. So let's get into it. Dr. Koç, when you presented in Jakarta, you highlighted that Türkiye had already met its initial 6.5 billion localization target and was pushing towards at least 10 billion USD. We now know that as of mid-2025, the total economic impact has actually reached 10.6 billion, which is remarkable. Now, my question is, which specific industrial sectors drove that outperformance? And as you look ahead, what are the next frontier areas, the products or services you believe Turkish industry is now ready to tackle and perhaps hasn't fully conquered yet? Dr. Koç.
Yes, Zaf, exactly. So the Turkish localization story has exceeded its initial local targets under the Akkuyu project, both in terms of strategic impact and the scale. As you pointed in your question, this localization efforts have started and achieved such good numbers and progress in a country where it's building its first ever nuclear power plant projects, and in an environment which was non-existent before. So today the localization in the Akkuyu is around 58%, even better than what I have presented, what the numbers I gave in Jakarta, Indonesia, with a contribution of local companies totaling up more than 11 billion USD in today's number. This is a major achievement, especially considering how demanding is the nuclear sector in terms of quality and safety concerns. As you can imagine, it is not like a conventional energy sector, which even that is a demanding sector, but here we are talking about more stricter requirements, certificates, controls, liabilities, reliance, etc. So far, overall in the Akkuyu project, the main contribution have come from sectors where Turkey has already established strong infrastructure and experience, such as construction, steel structures, and civil works. These are the sectors where Turkey is renowned to have international global contracts in the region and in the overall global sectors as well. We have also seen strong participation in mechanical manufacturing, electrical, and cabling as well, which is something we are still pushing forward to increase the numbers. There are lots of things to do in Akkuyu still, but I wanna again draw the attention of the audience to the fact that Turkey has achieved these numbers where this is the first ever nuclear power plant being built in Turkey. as well. But what we think the real shift is happening now, because we want to move from volume based manufacturing localization to capability based localization. What this means is it is no longer, it is much more about improving the company's products being how advanced, rather than how many companies being involved. That is also important, but we wanna improve our companies, their contribution being as more value added, more technologically intense and advanced. Our focus is, as I said, in high value, capability based, technology intense, safety critical components, such as there are some examples we have already. There are some companies that are already providing such components, but we want to increase this even further, including nuclear grade pumps and valves in safety critical areas of the power plant, instrumentation and control systems, and safety related electrical equipment. At the same time, we are investing in testing, certification, and inspection infrastructure, which is also very important, because true localization in a whole sense cannot be achieved in fragmented, but also needs to be a complete and harmonized, sustainable ecosystem. That's what we are trying to achieve in Turkey with the upcoming second and third NPP project, as well as SMR projects. In summary, our long-term goal is to transform Turkey from a project-based supplier to a global competitive nuclear sector provider country, and our companies in taking part in the global supply chain. I think that's that.
Fantastic. So a shift from a focus on quality over quantity. And
Exactly.
the last point that you mentioned, I think the global nuclear market, I think it's a massive horizon with many countries, as you know, looking to triple nuclear capacity by 2050. Current global situation have cast a spotlight on the need for more nuclear energy, which means that more opportunities for construction globally. And I think Turkish firms who are now already part of the Akkuyu supply chain will be hoping to look beyond the shores of Turkey and getting involved in other potential major projects. So I think that's an interesting sector that we can possibly look at. And I'll be interested to see how your ministry will continue to support all these Turkish firms as they look to global instead of just focusing on the Turkish market, Dr. Koç.
Yes, exactly. We're just, I think, since all, as you mentioned, even though Akkuyu is being almost commissioned, first reactor is gonna be producing electricity very soon, but still we are at the early stages of this journey. We wanna continue to grow and take a good part, a strong position in the growing global nuclear market, not just in Turkey.
Fantastic. Now, Dr. Koç, you are one of the few people in the world who has sat inside a government ministry and actively managed nuclear localization on a live project of this scale. Now, when you think about the countries in our network, Africa, Southeast Asia, nations that are currently where Turkey was 15 or 20 years ago, what are the 2 or 3 most important lessons from the Akkuyu experience that these countries, these emerging countries, should embed into their planning from day one? Like, what should they start thinking? Because many of them don't think about localization, maybe rightly so or wrongly so. But from your experience with Akkuyu and the work that you're doing right now, what advice would you give emerging countries?
Thank you very much, Zaf, first of all, for your compliment to myself as being an expert. But I would like to first acknowledge all my colleagues. It would be unfair to overlook their effort. There has been a tremendous, endless list of experts, professionals who have contributed to the Akkuyu project. I'm just a mere representative of their efforts, so to speak. I'm here in front of you, just trying to explain our lessons. There's a pool of lessons that we have been cultivating and collecting and recording for our future endeavors, for our future projects as well. And I'll try to list some of those. And there are several lessons that we have learned, and we want to do better in our next projects that would help those who are getting into this these kind of nuclear projects nowadays. So the first and most important one is thinking localization and planning it early on as a strategic goal. If you leave this to a further stage, if you just think that let's go on and have an agreement and then we can think about it later, it would be extremely challenging for those who wants to localize the nuclear power plants, some parts and equipments, and want to create a nuclear ecosystem and technology in their country. As I said, if you don't think about this early on during the contracting scheme, during the contract stage, even before that, when you first start thinking about nuclear projects, it would be extremely difficult. And if it is not embedded into contracts and the procurement strategies early on, it becomes very, very difficult to change these afterwards, because the project owner, stage would have already been planned, and everything would be light down, agreed, hands shaken, and everything would have been dealt with, and the local companies would struggle to find a way in, so to speak. Turkey's experience in this sense clearly shows that early integration is a key enabler for localization improvement. The second one would be the standards and certification or codes being critical in this sense. So the many companies, for example, in Turkey, are globally renowned, have lots of contracts in key projects worldwide, as well as in Turkey. Their technical capabilities quite high, but some of them, I mean, most of them don't have nuclear experience, and hence their safety critical certifications were not there in the beginning, which took them some time to get on with it. And hence, so early investment in certification and quality systems is essential in such a safety and quality driven environment and industry. That is probably the second lessons that we have learned. We are driving our companies, encouraging and organizing seminars and trying to adjust the environment to get them ready for the next projects through our different tools. And the third is a strong coordination. That's probably one of the easiest that would come to one's mind, but it is easier said than done, so to speak. So all the stakeholders must be coordinated and work in a harmony in the country to a single goal, which is in our case, in our topic, localization. Without the alignment, localization efforts would simply be slowed down, if not hindered. And another point is long-term thinking. As I said, if one should decide whether this would be a once only project, or there would be upcoming projects, and what is the future goal. If in Turkey's case, we wanna build second and third NPPs as well as some SMRs, and become a regional hub for manufacturing, engineering, and aftermarket servicing for the countries and the projects in our neighborhood, as well as in the global stage. And finally, human capital. That is also one of the obvious ones. But if you don't plan ahead, if you don't have enough human capital, not just for the construction and afterwards the operational stage, but also to get to the agreement and contract signing stage, you need well-trained, experienced personnel to have all those ends covered, to all those ends met, to have a better deal, to have your country's goals taken further with a better success chance. And that's the thing that we have collected so far from the Akkuyu and trying to bring ahead.
Fantastic. Now, building on this point, one of the innovations that I find particularly interesting, and I think underappreciated internationally, is NESIS, NESIS, the Nuclear Energy Supplier Information System, which your team or your ministry built this platform specifically to connect Turkish companies to the supply chain and to the main EPC contractor. Now, can you walk us through how NESIS actually works in practice? What a Turkish company experiences when it engages with this system, and critically, how do you see it evolving as Türkiye moves from Akkuyu towards sign-off and trace and SMR programs, Dr. Koç?
Yeah, this NESIS, Nuclear Energy Information System, Nuclear Enerji Tedarikçi Bilgi Sistemi, as in Turkish, is kind of building on the comments that I have made to your previous question in terms of taking Turkey's goals, long-term goals, and making them real in a success story. So NESIS, it has fundamentally changed how the supply chain works in Turkey, from a fragmented supplier, contractor, and stakeholder relation to a more connected, more aligned. So again, connected to the previous comments, to a more aligned, connected manner, and gave the supplier chains companies a ground for connection and more room for maneuvers, so to speak. And before NESIS, the nuclear supply chain was limited, had a limited visibility and coordination between stakeholders. Now we although it is still quite young, NESIS system, it had enormous amount of interest, and we have lots of companies joining and signing. We are organizing webinars to again make them aware of the progress in the second and third plants, as well as in the Akkuyu project. And now we have, with the NESIS, have a centralized platform that maps the entire supply chain in Turkey, including the ones with a nuclear experience now after Akkuyu. And this allows us to identify suitable suppliers for the projects, match them with project needs, and improve efficiency with transparency. For companies, this means high visibility and access to projects and contracts. For EPC contractors, this means a structured and reliable supplier database, which is quite important. Not every country, not every industry has this kind of tool. And as a note, I should mention that this NESIS system was developed in-house by the ministry experts, and I can easily say it's another success story in its sense. And NESIS,
sorry to interrupt. I mean, the point that you mentioned, that it was built in-house, I think that's really fantastic, and we don't see many government ministries taking charge in such activities. I mean, what was the inspiration for this? It clearly, like you mentioned, it is something new that came aboard. It didn't start right from the start. What was inspiration, Dr. Koç?
Yeah, as I said, there are long list of experts and professionals who are putting their time and effort to make this nuclear program, a better success story. And as I said earlier, the Turkey has a long-term goal, future plans of second, third MPPs, as well as SMRs, and to become a manufacturing hub and a nuclear go-to place, so to speak, in some future for neighboring and regional countries, starting with to be able to answer those requests in the future and be able to get our nuclear industry mature enough for the second and third MPPs to be able to further even achieve even higher localization rate than Akkuyu in the second and third NPP project. We realized that we need a centralized system, an online database where we can map, X-ray the nuclear industry's backbones, so to speak, and get a database that we can read and understand what are weaknesses, what are strong positions, where we need more human source, where we need more infrastructure, what incentives we need to give the industry to make them more competitive, more ready, certification needs, quality insurances, etc. So those are the needs led us to develop NESIS. That is still in its infancy, so to speak, but it has grown quite rapidly to this stage, and we have more projects to even further this. For example, so looking to my notes, we want to expand it to as a full digital ecosystem, including procurement tracking in the next projects, certification monitoring for the companies where we'll need such certifications and quality adjustments, and supplier performance evaluation, as well as the other aspects. And in the long term, NESIS will also support international market access for Turkish companies, which as I said, when we become a regional and global player in the nuclear industry.
Well, I think the last point is very interesting. In fact, I would like to add that I personally see potential for NESIS to become a regional international model, perhaps as a tool which other new countries could adapt. And certainly, I think your experience with NESIS is very crucial. Just a quick question: how many companies currently are registered on NESIS? Is it something that you can share?
I think so. So currently we have more than 300 companies. We only accept the countries with manufacturing capabilities and design capabilities. We have a filtering system, so to speak. So we don't just accept any company to make the numbers grow and look better. So those 300 companies, they either have experience with Akkuyu or abroad in nuclear projects, or in significant construction, oil and gas, energy, or I don't know, manufacturing, machine tools. So such companies are registered. I think I don't remember the exact numbers now, but I think had more than 300 registrations.
So again, going back to your earlier point, focusing on quality as opposed to quantity, because at the end of the day, you're not interested in like showing that, look, we have 10,000 companies or whatever, but you want to have the quality companies that can actually have an impact and have got great potential to move beyond Turkey itself. Fantastic. Dr. Koç. Moving on to the next part of my discussion. So your country's national energy plan currently targets 7.2 gigawatts by 2035 and 20 gigawatt by 2050. Of course, this is not over one project, and it is a multi-decade nuclear power program. The question I want to put to you is about supply chain readiness, which you have partially answered earlier on. How is your ministry preparing the domestic industry to handle multiple concurrent NPP projects, potentially from different vendors with different technology, specification, and how does the integration of SMRs, which Turkey has been actively exploring, fit into this industrial strategy? Now, again, right now, Akkuyu is, as we all know, Rosatom is building VVRs over there. In the public, it shows discussions potentially with China, with South Korea, with Canada, even more recently. So potentially different technology choices coming into play. So my question again is, how is your ministry preparing the domestic industry to handle potentially multiple concurrent NPP projects with different vendors, different technology, Dr. Koç?
Yes, Zaf, yeah. So with Akkuyu is nearing completion, at least with the first reactor gonna be operational very soon. We have a long vision, as I multiple times iterated. So the long-term vision of Turkey in nuclear energy industry is having 7.2 gigawatt of nuclear installed capacity by 2035 and over 20 gigabyte by 2053, which is the 150th anniversary of the foundation of Republic of Türkiye. This simply not just require new plants, but requires an extensive, complete nuclear industrial ecosystem. That's what we are trying to achieve with NESIS and other tools, and as well as the becoming a learning platform. So Akkuyu, as I said, was not just a project for us, but also a learning platform for both our government officials as well as our industry, or for all the stakeholders. So we are trying to utilize those lessons learned and use them for further projects. In this, we have already started to transfer this experience to the international market, international stage, as you pointed out, and we want to utilize these in SINOP and TRACE project and in the future SMRs as well. So we are, in this context, we are strengthening our companies by supporting certification, improving technical capabilities, and integrating companies into future projects. Another key factor here is, as you mentioned, that we are in discussions with different vendors having different technologies, similar but separate offers. So we haven't decided what kind of reactor that we will be building in SINOP and TRACE. Hence, the diversification can also be utilized as a strategy, which working with different international partners reduces dependency risk and expands the capabilities if we were to become a regional hub and a service provider for those which are behind us in terms of nuclear industrial advancements. And similarly, SMRs are especially important because their modular design and modularity inherent design allows more flexibility in manufacturing, which can enable more small medium enterprises to be involved in such projects. We are closely watching the developments in SMR markets, and we are hoping to have some SMRs installed in Turkey when they become available and robust. Similar. So to sum up, we see SMRs not only as a technology, but as an industrial opportunity and key enabler for industrial expansion and localization in Turkey.
Fantastic. Now, just one follow-up question. What role do you think standardization will play? Is Turkey pushing for technology holders to accept Turkish manufactured components that meet international standards regardless of origin? Is this something that your ministry would potentially be looking at, the importance of standardization, Dr. Koç?
We wanna prioritize Turkish companies with fulfilling all those safety and quality requirements. But obviously, Turkey is an open market, and the most important thing is having a nuclear power plant with safety put in front of everything else. So we want to have safe, reliable, sustainable, long-term operational nuclear power plant, and then we want to localize everything. So that's the goal.
Understood. Now, moving on to exporting expertise, and we touched on this earlier with regards to Turkey's subtle ambition to also be a regional nuclear hub, right? We recently saw that NUTED secured inspection services at Parks 2 project in Hungary, which is a significant milestone. This suggests that Turkey is beginning to export nuclear expertise, not just importing it. My question is this a sign of a broader, deliberate strategy to position Turkey as a regional nuclear service hub? to not just build its own plants, but to potentially become a provider of nuclear engineering, inspection, and potentially training services to other markets. I think you've mentioned this a little bit, but just wanted to find out from you whether this is a strategy, a long-term strategy, or is it something that happens by chance, Dr. Koç?
No, not by chance, but exactly it's part of a long-term vision. So we want to become a regional hub for nuclear industry go-to place whenever someone needs. And if you look around the nuclear global players, they have all constructed their, most of them at least, constructed their nuclear power plants and haven't been constructing any nuclear power plants for quite significant time. But Turkey has started constructing Akkuyu quite recently and have had a tremendous significant amount of localization and building human capital, and it's like everything is like checkbox ticked. So we would like to utilize this not just for Turkish projects, but for the regional countries and offer our expertise to the worldwide in general. Akkuyu, in this sense, Akkuyu has given Turkey a hands-on experience across all phases of nuclear project, from construction, commissioning, and eventually operation, as well as manufacturing approvals and inspection services, which NÜTED is offering to Hungarian project. And this is already translated into international operations such as in this case, not just NÜTED service providing to Hungary, but also we have several companies who have already started providing their equipments and services to different nuclear projects in the region.
Yep.
And as I said, we are seeing the companies participating in projects in areas like manufacturing, construction, engineering, and inspection, which are the main areas that we have gained experience, our companies and our institutions. But our ambition goes further than this. We want to build a complete ecosystem, as I mentioned in my previous comments.
Yep.
And engineering services, manufacturing, certification, which is very important for a newcomer company. I want to emphasize this again. Long-term maintenance, which is where when you think about a nuclear power plant, it will be built in 10 years, let's say, in an optimistic case, but it will operate 60 more years and maybe 80 more years, which will need long-term maintenance, which is something we wanna build expertise and be involved in nuclear industry, in nuclear ecosystem. And to sum up with its industrial base and expertise, not just in nuclear, but also all the other sectors, and with its geopolitical location connecting Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, I think Turkey can well play a regional hub role and provide its services to all those who are seeking help.
I agree. Now, just a follow-up question. Now, with this in mind, does the Turkish government currently or plans to have any formal programs to support Turkish nuclear companies in internationalizing their services? That means, in some sectors, non-nuclear, whatever, some governments, they actually help provide grants or programs for the companies to grow abroad. Does Turkey currently have such programs for the nuclear companies, or plan to have such programs, Dr. Koç?
Yes, as you mentioned, Turkey has already incentive mechanism for importer companies,
Yep.
irrespective of their products, where they are, like, as in irrespective of their products being nuclear grade or conventional.
Yep.
But we have been working on some special incentive mechanisms. We are developing such kind of legislations and mechanisms for nuclear companies, nuclear providers. In a nutshell, to your question, yes, we are preparing. There is not a current one at the moment for specific such incentives, but we are in preparation.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, moving on to a topic which I think is very important. I think it will affect many projects. Financing, right? Financing and future project models, right? Beyond the BOO. Akkuyu was, of course, structured as a build, own, operate model, the first in the world, I must add, with Rosatom bearing the investment and operational risks. That was a pragmatic solution for a first-of-a-kind project. But as Türkiye moves towards sign-up and trace, with potentially different technology partners and different geopolitical considerations, how do you assess the BOO model going forward? And what alternative or complementary financing structures is your ministry considering for future projects, Dr. Koç?
Yes, BOO model is unique to Akkuyu in nuclear project. There are several examples in other sectors, including construction, energy, but there has never been, to my knowledge, another BOO model which is built on operate than Akkuyu project. However, Akkuyu has BOO model used in Akkuyu has been very effective for Turkey. It enabled a large-scale investment which is over than 20 billion USD without direct public financing, which is quite important, while also transferring risk to the investor, as you also pointed out. However, we don't see for the second and third project in SMRs, we don't see BOO as the only single solution. We are exploring other financing options, and we are assessing their pros and cons. Everything is on the table, I must say. So for the future projects, there are three key points we are looking when we are in discussion with the vendor companies. We want to balance financial sustainability, risk sharing, and localization, which is all needs to work in a harmony. And lastly, each project is unique and different, so flexibility will be key when we decide on the next project financing model.
Okay, fantastic. So we know that BO is not the be all and the end all, and that Türkiye is open to exploring other financial pathways, but of course maintaining the 3 points that you mentioned, which is your guiding principles. Dr. Koç, nuclear is by design one of the most demanding industrial qualification environments in the world. You have ASME, ISO 19443, IEA standards. Meeting this is not a small matter, and it's a significant barrier for companies entering the supply chain for the first time. Now, based on your experience working directly with Turkish companies, especially through NESIS and the Akkuyu qualification process, how ready is Türkiye's industrial base to meet the global nuclear standards? And where are the remaining qualification gaps that needs to be closed before Türkiye can truly say its supply chain is world-class, Dr. Koç?
Yes, Türkiye has already strong capabilities, as I mentioned multiple times, in construction, manufacturing, and engineering. We have many talented, experienced companies, individuals, human capital is there as well. And we now have started to cultivate nuclear experience with Akkuyu. But in a broader sense, nuclear energy requires more than technical capacity, but it requires a complete, whole, extensive quality culture embraced by all stakeholders. So this includes strict standards, full traceability, and long-term reliability. So if you can't rely a component or a company to last decades, that's a question for when it comes to nuclear builds. Towards establishing this culture, we have made significant progress in recent years. Many companies have obtained certifications, like, as you mentioned, several of them. There are lots of quality certifications, but with the Akkuyu project and with the broader world nuclear state requirements, some companies with our encouragements and information information sessions. They have obtained �𝐴SME API Ghost standards. Some of them can be listed. This transformation is critical not just for domestic project, but for global competitiveness as well. So today, Turkish companies are increasingly seen as reliable partners internationally, which we believe is readying the stage for next projects and ensuring maximization of the localization in those projects.
Understood. Just a quick side question, and of course, with your background also with Denmark in the past, what role does Denmark play in supporting companies through qualification process, or do they even play a role, Dr. Koç?
Denmark is more of a research organization. The nuclear research is centered in Denmark. Denmark has a test reactor in Istanbul.
Yep.
Which is in a standby mode, waiting for licensing approval from NDK.
Yep.
And a proton accelerator in Ankara for research and assisting advanced technologies.
Yep.
So it is a ground for more of a human capital training as well. So it is utilizing all those infrastructure for human development, and then industry can benefit from those as well. And as well as they have some services to the industry for monitoring and measurement of radioactive activities as well.
Understood. I mean, it's just as a side note, I mean, it's fantastic that Turkey actually has got many important institutions already in place to support your program. Even your university, 𝐜𝐸𝐶𝐵 University, offers fantastic program in nuclear engineering. Of course, you have NDK, you have a TSO in UTED, you have your ministry, you have TUNASH, which is a project owner for future projects. So you seem to have all these key bodies in place, even before, some of them before Akkuyu, the Akkuyu project. In fact, many do not know that Turkey's journey actually started more than 50 years ago. In fact, some might say, right? So I think the foundation is very strong, and now you're building on it with all these localization efforts, supporting your domestic companies to be qualified and to look beyond the shores of Turkey and potentially be a global player in the nuclear supply chain, Dr. Koç. Now, final question, and this is looking forward, long-term vision. So, Dr. Koç, this is a very important one. You have spent your career, in various parts, helping Turkey build its nuclear capability. Now, when you look to 2050, 20 gigawatts of nuclear capacity, multiple plants operating, and a very mature supply chain, a generation of nuclear engineers trained, where do you see Turkey's place in the global nuclear industry? I'm assuming not just as a consumer of nuclear energy, but potentially as an actor in the broader nuclear economy, Dr.
Exactly, Zaf. As you said, we don't just want to consume electricity and a buyer in the market, but we want to become a partner, a reliable nuclear partner internationally, and we want to go beyond electricity generation and build capabilities across the entire value chain, including engineering, manufacturing, human capital, and advanced technologies, including those that are emerging in the market. We aim to create a self-sustaining, innovation-driven ecosystem, and ultimately we want to become self-sufficient and building and operating nuclear plants and exporting high-value products and services, to providing our services to the global market, and contribute actively to the nuclear development in the world with our expertise and human capital developed. So those are the goals that can be summarized in a very short sentence.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, Dr. Koç, this has been genuinely a fascinating conversation. The story of Turkey's localization journey, your ambition, your ministry's ambition, your country's ambition, the infrastructure which you have built, the milestones that you are about to reach with Akkuyu Unit 1 is exactly the kind of intelligence that our global network needs to hear. Thank you for sharing it so openly, Dr. Koç.
Thank you very much, Zaf, for inviting and giving me the floor to address the audience of the nuclear industry and nuclear enthusiasts as well. And yeah, thank you very much for the interview.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, I should also mention to our viewers that we'll be hosting the Turkey Nuclear Business Platform, TNBP, in Ankara this August. And localization and supply chain will be front and center. To our audience, if this conversation has been valuable, please subscribe to our channel, visit our website for the full library of NBP Hot Seat interviews and our upcoming conference schedule. Thank you all for watching, and Dr. Koç, teşekkür ederim.
Teşekkür ederim. Güle güle.
Güle güle.